Hi, little one. We haven't met yet and won't for about 7 more months, but I'm your dad.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Toronto-based pianist Nick Maclean on his 2021 CD, Can You Hear Me? This double album is his debut solo piano release, taking influences from jazz piano greats like Bill Evans, Keith Jarrett, and the great Brad Mehldau. This project came together based on his respect and trust in producer Brownman Ali's powerful guidance. He opened up about this project, pending fatherhood, COVID, and so much more. Enjoy.
Well, hey, man, thank you for taking a minute out for the show. I know we've caught up before, and it was a wholly different time on planet Earth at that point.
Oh, yes, indeed.
I mean, if somebody would have said at the end of that conversation to us that the world would transpire to this point, I don't think either of us would have believed them.
Oh, man, I can remember at the very beginning of the pandemic, thinking that in a couple months later it'd all be done. I can remember making touring plans that were doomed from the start. So, yeah, in some ways I still don't think we quite have a sense of where this is going to go.
And it is kind of nice to see now that the vaccinations are spreading, that we're getting hopefully on the other end of this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
I know we've all got our fingers crossed.
Yeah, we certainly do. And I guess the antidote to all of this, throughout all of this time, has been the fact that we've had music, and you have a brand new album, Can You Hear Me? And I want to know from you, coming out at this particular time, how does it feel?
Coming out of this particular time, I mean, it feels really good to have an album out and to have been continuing to produce music during the pandemic. I mean, it's, when gigs stopped happening, that was a huge blow to so many artists, and it was a huge drag to not be able to, get together with other musicians and play and explore. Because, I mean, jazz as an art form on its own is so much about the act of creation and the act of collaboration and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's what better time to do a solo record? So, yeah, it was extremely gratifying to be able to take on a project like that when there was very little else going on, and so it was very nice to be kept busy in that regard.
Ultimately, from this project, what do you hope the listener gets from this experience, that either buys or downloads it? What do you want them to get?
I hope that the listener really gets the level of exploration and risk that is in this album. I should talk a little bit about my producer, Brownman, for a minute, because he is heavily involved in the creation and the execution of the work that's on this album. Like, in a lot of ways, it's a solo album. For the vast majority of the time, you're only going to hear me. But in a lot of ways, I think of it as a duo record. Now, I've worked with Brown for 8 years, become very close friends, and he produced the last 2 albums that I did. My 2016 release with my electric group Snaggle, The Long Slog, and then the 2017 release with my modern jazz group Nick Maclean Quartet, Rites of Ascension, which we talked about previously. So I already kind of had a sense for his production style, and I very much have always gotten the sense that he views his job as producer as to encourage the best possible performance out of his artists that he possibly can, and he has absolutely no agenda apart from that, and he does it really well. But solo piano is a really personal medium and a really vulnerable medium, and I definitely know that Brown understood that, and he took a really extra sense of care to how he approached this project with me. And so we spent a lot of time together talking about storytelling, talking about ideology, sitting just listening to cats like Bill Evans or Keith Jarrett or Brad Mehldau, who are all touchstones for this kind of project, and talking about what we wanted the music to say, because we wanted it to be an emotional experience, like an emotional experience couched in intellectualism and introspection and all that kind of stuff. But you never put on a Bill Evans record and you say, "Oh wow, isn't that man clever?" You listen to a Bill Evans record and you're bowled over by just the depth of emotion, and then later you're just blown away with the depth of the intellect behind the music as well. So that's we wanted that to be an important thing. The really special thing about our collaboration No, it was already pretty deep in the pre-production, but it just got really special in the recording studio itself because Brown pushed me and prodded me in different directions and kind of guided me into territory that I hadn't explored before, and just hit the recording button and saw what would happen. And a lot of those very spontaneous recordings made the record. The listener will be able to hear some of Brown's and my conversations before some of these recordings, like on Someday My Prince Will Come. Brown gives me the instructions, okay, I want you to play this one, start with a kind of introspective Bill Evansy approach, move into a drunk and staggering 3, and then finish off with kind of a funky backbeat 4. And you know, Someday My Prince Will Come is a tune that I know very well, and I've played many times. I've never played it like that before. And so what listeners are hearing on the record is the only take that we did of that, me very spontaneously trying to maneuver these new directives from Brown that I'm being given. So a lot of the tracks on the album have that kind of an approach to them. So yeah, I very much hope that listeners are going to be able to kind of see the depth of exploration that is in the record, because I'm really proud of it.
Well, and all of this, not only is the backdrop of our lives, the COVID world that we're all going through, but you're getting ready to welcome a new life onto this planet. How much is that going into, you know, your entire feeling of having a new album come out?
They're both intertwined a fair bit. It was really kind of special because the production of the album very much mirrored my wife's pregnancy in a lot of really unexpected and really unplanned ways. So one of the very last tune on the record is a tune called Zion, and it's a spontaneous improvisation that came about when Brown, me, and Justin Melly, our recording engineer, were having a conversation before I was about to take a tune, do a take of a tune, and the subject of Lauryn Hill came up, and it came up that I hadn't really checked out much Lauryn Hill, and Brown was aghast because, you know, Lauryn Hill's an important figure in the hip-hop canon. After we'd done the take of whatever tune we were recording, Brown came up over my headphones and said, okay, Nick, I want you to play these 4 chords, E major 7, F sharp minor 7, G sharp 7, and C sharp minor 7. And then he had me listen to about 45 seconds of the Lauryn Hill track To Zion, and then said, there's your inspiration, create something with that, go. The Lauryn Hill track, To Zion, off of her quintessential The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, it tells the story of her pregnancy with her son, Zion. And it was a pregnancy that had all kinds of different challenges. I mean, here we have a very successful recording artist, and a lot of people were telling her, listen, you're about to have a child, you've got a successful career, this is going to be a problem for you. And so, you know, there were things that she had to wrestle with, but the thing that kind of went through it all is her powerful love that she had for her coming son, and she knew that her son had to be a part of her life. This is a thing that she had to do. Whatever else was going to happen was going to happen. I didn't know any of that when I was improvising Zion, the track that's on my record. Now, to bring this full circle back to the child that my wife and I are expecting, what neither of us knew at the time we were recording was that my wife was newly pregnant with our daughter. So in a lot of ways, I like to think that I was kind of channeling that energy into that performance. But then also it's like the album itself is very much centered around themes of communication because of the relationship that Brownman and I have and the dynamic that we had in the studio. And so I was thinking back at like, well, what lessons are to be learned from here? What kind of principles am I using in my music that I want to pass on to my daughter when she's old enough to learn about these kind of things? And so I wrote a little thing in the liners of the album of 3 principles that I think kind of encapsulate the music that was made. And so the first of these is, look at the world and the people around you with curiosity and humility. None of us will ever know everything, but the more that we explore and expand our horizons, the more we will understand and be capable of. So the idea there being to not close yourself off to new possibilities. Jazz is a music of exploration, and so you always want to be looking at what's coming, what is possible. What have you already done, and where can you go next? And so that's incredibly important. And then listening to other people are going to help point you in directions that you might not have considered yourself. So the second, take risks with your expression and allow others to do the same. The best thinking is done out loud and in an environment where the search for truth, beauty, and nobility is a never-ending exploration, permissive of error rather than a recitation requiring perfection. For a jazz musician to truly explore and create spontaneously, there's an assumption that you're taking a risk. There's a possibility that you might fall on your face and make a fool of yourself, make errors, and when you're doing that on stage or when the red recording light is blinking, that can be nerve-inducing because your mistakes are going to be, on display for the world to see. But all of my favorite jazz artists, Wayne Shorter, Miles Davis, Bill Evans, Brad Mehldau, Keith Jarrett, any of these cats are masters at exploration, and every time they get up on stage and play, they're taking risks. Yeah, I try and live my life the same way. I try and play the same way in the pursuit of exploration and compelling storytelling. So then the last thing, don't forget to have fun and to not take things too seriously. Be quick to laughter, slow to take offense. This is an easy one to forget about, but can be a great source of joy in life. And this, to me, is the thing that makes the idea that you can fall on your face okay. Because if you fall on your face, all you do is you get back up and you try again. And every time you try again, you get a little bit better at it until, eventually greats like Bill Evans, like Herbie Hancock, like all those jazz masters that we revere have created. Because at one point, they were learning too. I mean, it's all the greatest ones are still learning, are still pushing and still growing. But, at one point, they were learning for the first time, and they were making mistakes that we've made. It's just through an acceptance that mistakes are part of the process. Don't take them too seriously, and don't forget to have fun along the way, because it's less about the destination and it's more about the journey. These are some of the things that I very much would like to teach my daughter when she arrives. I think they're suffused in the work of the album, so that's some of the things that I've been thinking about through its creation and some of the words that I put into the line.
So, now that we are getting to a point where live music is starting up, what do you hope we all, like in a lasting sense, realize about this long absence from live music and how we approach it, both musician and the audience? It's
really important. Music as a form of expression expresses things that words can't in the same way. Like it's a form of expression that expresses emotions in ways that words can't. And these kinds of communal settings where we all get together and we have an experience together are incredibly special, especially in art forms that involve a lot of spontaneity, because this is an experience that you're having with this artist and these people around you at this point in time, and you'll never have it again. You may have similar ones. They may play the same tune again, but it'll go somewhere else. It'll be a different thing. To not have that connection, I think a lot of people find like anxiety inducing. I know my wife, when the pandemic first started, she was someone who really couldn't handle working at home. Like just being trapped in the apartment for weeks on end just made her anxiety go through the roof, and I could just feel that she was getting cabin fever. I know there are a lot of folks like that. And so to be able to interact with other people, because, I mean, jazz is an interactive art form. It's musicians on stage interacting with each other and creating something in the moment, and even the audience is involved. Like, it's, ask any performing musician what it's like to play for an audience who is enwrapped and listening versus an audience who's, kind of doing their own thing and talking about their stock portfolio. It's a very different experience, and you'll get very different results out of musicians as a result. So it's all an interactive experience. It all describes things that we all, things and experiences that we all have in life. Yeah, we're social creatures, so it's important to have those sorts of connections. So, yeah, coming out of this pandemic, I think a lot of us will take those sorts of opportunities less for granted, and I hope that we all just we cherish them more. We support the continuation of them, and we we recognize kind of the important role that they play in our lives.
Beautiful. Nick, man, thank you for opening up, and good luck with the album and the return to the stage. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's hopefully we're going to be able to see you in Kansas before too long. My group, Nick Maclean Quartet, is booking a national tour for 2023 with support from the Canada Arts Council, and we're hoping to be able to get down to the States as well. If anyone wants to learn more about me or Brown to Source Records, the label that I'm signed to and that the album has been released on, they can find me at nicholasmaclean.com or the label at browntosource.com. And you can also find me on Instagram and YouTube under Nick Maclean Jazz or on Facebook under NM Jazz.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Toronto, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Nick for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.